All right, we are going to be checking out the Chicago History Museum today, which is right over here. So they have a exhibit here now called The City on Fire, Chicago of 1871, when the Great Chicago Fire happened. And they've got paintings and, wow, look at that one. Wow. So imagine being chased by fire. Is that Mrs. O'Leary's barn there or something? I don't know. Because that's where they say it started, by a cow kicking over a lantern. But the whole city was made of wood at that time. This is 1871. There was no skyscrapers and concrete. Look at this panorama of Chicago. Look at that. As you can see, like I said, no skyscrapers at that time. The tallest building was maybe 5 stories tall. This is all the building materials. Look at wood. Which animal poop will burn? I do believe it's cows. Manure, just animal poop in general, is flammable and can be used to heat homes. Straw. Will coal burn? Of course. Coal was burned in homes, businesses, and factories for heat and power. Now here's an interesting question. Do you think streets and sidewalks would burn? Yes. A few paved streets and sidewalks that existed in 1871 are made of wooden planks and pavers treated with chemicals that are also flammable. So not only would the buildings burn, but the streets would burn too. Will water pipes burn? Maybe. Wood is even used to make some of the city's water pipes. Look at that. So when the fire took place, it was unseasonably hot in Chicago. It has been over 80 degrees for several days in September and October, much higher than the normal time of this year, and it was dry. There was a drought, which is a long period with little or no rain going on in Chicago. It had only rained a half an inch since the 4th of July, and this happened in October, and it was super windy. The winds are strong as 20 miles an hour blow from the southwest, covering the entire city with dust and making the air even more dry. The absolute perfect conditions for fire. And here we go. Here's the famous Catherine and Patrick O'Leary in the night on October 8th, 1871. Now, the reason they say they can pinpoint this down to where the fire started is because everything to the left of their house was untouched, and the winds were blowing in a southwest area, and their barn is where they said it started. So they believe that the cow kicked over the lantern and started the Great Chicago Fire. And that's what their house looked like. The O'Leary home. Patrick and Catherine O'Leary are immigrants, like nearly half of Chicagoans. They are from Ireland. They were Catholic, which are two groups that get unfairly blamed for problems in the city. And here they've discovered, oh my goodness, the barn is on fire. They have 5 children and they live in a 2-room cottage. So this right here, this was what a fire truck was in the day, and it had a steam-powered pump that would pump water through. And it was called a steam pumper. This is 11:59 p.m. The O'Leary's cottage. It went up here by the courthouse and city hall. And then, so on October 8th, you saw that, and that was just about noon, and it had gotten up to here. One day later, at noon, all of this was on fire. And we are right here. The O'Leary's cottage was right here. Now the water tower was the only building in the pump house that was actually made out of stone. And those were the only buildings that were actually saved because of that fact. Those are still there today. The 2 buildings that survived the Great Chicago Fire. So now let's go to October 10th, the next day, by 4 o'clock in the morning. Now look what's on fire. It just keeps stretching and stretching and stretching. So even the building that we were in right now, or the spot, was all on fire. And they've actually got personalized accounts of what people were saying and things like that. But look at this destruction. I called it the smoldering city. My goodness. I know it's kind of hard to see on this, so I'm going to pull up some pictures from the fire for you. It is yet another miserable day in Chicago. That's right, out of the past 30 days, it has rained, I think, 26 of the days out of the past 30, and it has been so cold. So, but what I want to show you up here is a water tower place. This is the water tower and the pump station, and you You can actually see it right there. That's the water tower right there. That is one of the only buildings to survive the Great Chicago Fire, and the pump station is right across the street over here. So when we get a little closer, I'll show you those. So yes, there it is, the water tower, and it is now an art gallery. And I'll turn here, but the pump station is right there, and that is now the Looking Glass Theater. But yeah, those are two of the buildings that survived the Great Chicago Fire. So where did it all start? The O'Leary's barn. And what is there in that location? What's there now? You're gonna love this. It is the home of the Chicago Fire Academy. This is where the Chicago Fire Department trains. And it's got this beautiful flame sculpture right here. And it says, "Here began the Chicago Fire of 1871." And at night, this lights up, actually. But here it is, the site of the origin of the Chicago Fire of 1871. The Great Chicago Fire began October 8th, 1871 in the O'Leary Barn on DeCoven Street. And I'll put the address down below. Fanned by strong wind in a city largely built of wood structures, the blaze raged for nearly 30 hours. Flames spread as far north as Fullerton Avenue before finally dying out in the early morning rain. Tuesday, October 10th. Almost everything in the path of the fire had been destroyed. Wow! But this is where it all happened, right here. Isn't that amazing? And over here they've got a remembrance wall. Sorry about the wind, but it actually stopped raining just for a little bit here. So, but honorable retirees. Isn't that great? Dedicated to the firefighters and paramedics who proudly served the citizens of Chicago and the Chicago Fire Department. So, but yes, so here sits the Chicago Fire Academy. And ooh, look inside here. I don't know if you can see in there. That's an old fire truck, like a fire wagon, horse-drawn, is in here. Let's see if we can go in. Inside the building here, they've got some artifacts. This is a 40-gallon chemical fire engine. Look at that. Look at this. Isn't that interesting? That is fantastic. So this was all horse-driven, and then had to hand pump this thing to get water, and then get it going. And then the steam, it was ran on a steam engine, and then the steam would pump the water through. That is fascinating. And here's another fire wagon. Love that mural up there. That's fantastic. Here's another whole story about the Chicago Fire and how it spread in the building we are at right now. And look how far it went. Destroyed like 3.5 miles of the city. So this one's a little bit more exact. This is the exact spot right here where the O'Leary's home was. So on this site stood the home and barn of Mrs. O'Leary, where the Chicago Fire of 1871 started. Although there are many versions of the story of its origin, the real cause of the fire has never been determined. But this was the actual, this is it. X marks the spot, 1871. So yes, here's where it all began, the Great Chicago Fire. It's located at 558 DeKoven Street, and that's on the corners of DeKoven and Jefferson Street here in Chicago. And now the Chicago Fire Academy. Couldn't be more of a fitting place for this. Just so you know how hot some of these things were, there's like coins that are melted together. Look at that, the glass melted. This is a little statue fragment of a woman's head, but look at the char that's on it. There's some child's marbles, and the marbles fused together. So it actually caused the glass to fuse together. It says, take a good look at what people were carrying. What surprised you? So we got pennies melted together. Those are pennies. A melted cup. Fused screws. These are tacks. These tacks were melted together. Nails. They found a keg of nails. And that keg of nails melted together. Look at that. All these items were from different homes. And look at the burn marks and stuff, and cups and saucers that melted. Look at the silverware. All the silverware melted together. My goodness. There's a pocket watch. These were coins that were found in a bank. Oh gosh. That's crazy. So overnight, over the past 4 or 5 days, people became homeless, and it actually became a tent city. So for those who remain, there are some 50,000 tents left over from the Civil War that they can sleep in outside. So luckily they had that. But to the homeless, the headquarters of the General Relief Committee are at the Congregational Church on the corner of Washington and Ann Streets. So they definitely decided to rebuild the city, and they did it just in time for the World's Fair. So I find it fascinating that they rebuilt the entire city of Chicago in less than 2 years. But it does beg to ask the question: if that fire never happened, what would have happened with Chicago? I mean, eventually, of course, I mean, we know as far as like New York, cities like the city of New York, they would just tear down buildings and then rebuild in its place. But what would it have looked like? I mean, if the fire never happened, and what would the progression of the city be? So this just kind of, not to coin a phrase here, not a pun, but kind of put a fire underneath them to rebuild the city, and quickly, and then just a few years later have a World's Fair there. I mean, that's incredible. So, but yeah, so it destroyed almost 3.5 miles of the. But we do know that the rebuilding of Chicago happened immediately. Uh, in a lot of cases, buildings started going up before the architects could finalize their plans, as a matter of fact, and new laws came into effect. If you wanted to build within the city limits of Chicago, it had to be built with fireproof material. At that moment, fire insurance became a thing. So if you wanted to own a home or business in the city limits of Chicago, you also had to purchase fire insurance. The fire caused $200 million in 1871 dollars. That's like $1.37 billion today. That's crazy. There was 300 fatalities, so 300 people died during the fire, and there was 17,450 buildings destroyed, completely destroyed, where it had to be completely just leveled and start from scratch. Wow, that's crazy. It did leave over 100,000 people completely homeless. Many people just left the city and ventured further out, and ta-da! There's how the suburbs started. Okay, so if you enjoyed this episode, please remember, give us a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe down below. Keep it safe, keep it sexy, everyone. If you want to correspond with us via our P.O. box, I will list our P.O. box information down in the information box below. And until then, I hope you really enjoyed this. Have a great day, and we'll see you guys next time on Where the Heck Are the Albans? Bye, everyone.